So how much are declining mining receipts responsible for this and future deficits?
They are starting to be a bit of a problem. Having been magnificent a decade ago, Australian taxpayers got about $5 billion a year out of selling resources to the world. The taxes on that currently over $40 billion a year. So it's done enormously well, but the pendulum is swinging. China is slowing. Things like iron ore and other things we sell to the world under pressure. The government has therefore started to revise down the expected take on company tax because of factors like that.
All right, so how reliant on the health of China's economy have we been then to keep the budget in surplus before now?
Australia's budget has been remarkably lucky. It has been a big beneficiary of the rise of China over the years. And indeed, more recently, other things have had an impact on the budget. The Treasurer is quite right. We, compared to the rest of the world, are doing amazingly better on our debts and deficits. But it is luck. It's the strong prices we get from what we sell to the world. War has sadly added to that. Migration has meant more people to tax. Inflation kind of takes money from families and gives it to the taxman. That combination has provided a big windfall to the budget.
So the government is blaming falling commodity prices as well for the situation, Chris, but iron ore prices are still pretty high, aren't they?
They are. Part of the problem is that as China slows, it's buying smaller quantities than it used to. And as you look ahead, and again, to use iron ore as an example, the rest of the world, some big mines will be opening up in the rest of the world. So some of the glory years for the Australian federal budget off the back of the rise of China, that's probably passing. But the main reason we're seeing a downturn in the budget is really the extent to which we've taken decisions in recent years. Some decisions were made by previous governments. The big tax cut, this government might have rejigged it, but it essentially kept it very much the same, and a chunk of extra spending. That combination increasingly weighing on the budget.
Yeah. So when times were good, those glory years, as you put it, Chris, and the resources sector was performing well, what happened to those tax receipts from those profits?
Sadly, we weren't as good as some other nations around the world. Norway, for example, has a bunch of resources and takes the tax revenue there and salts a bunch of it away. We Australians have pretty much spent it on ourselves on the way through. That's always going to be a temptation. I do fear, however, that history will look back over the last couple of decades and wonder how we managed to squander so much. And that's even without taxing it as well as we could have. There are key areas, such as our gas exports, that we just don't tax enough.
So we did squander the opportunity to build some sort of buffer into the budget to protect us against the economic realities we're now facing.
And it's the oldest mistake in the books. Howard and Costello had a similar phase of good luck. This government's had even better luck. Howard and Costello, made permanent promises off the back of that temporary good news. This government's done the same. This government would say its permanent promises are smaller. That's true. But it doesn't mean that they weren't a mistake. The future is expanding. We've got big promises in defence, in things like NDIS, and we're not really challenging Australians enough around what we're doing and how we're paying for that.
So how does the future look in your view, Chris? When do you think we might be back in surplus?
My hair could be grey by then, Ross. It's going to take quite some time because it's going to take courage, and we have a political system these days that it's easier and easier to get into government and harder to then do something with it. Our oppositions, both sides, are superb at opposing. That makes it harder to do the things we need to do.
Chris Richardson, always good to talk to you. Thank you.
Thanks, Ross.